He found a box in a chimney. The photos inside changed history. A chimney sweep was cleaning a fireplace that had been sealed for 70 years. Deep inside, his camera found a hidden box. He thought it was just full of old glass, but when he held one piece up to the light, he found himself staring into the eyes of a ghost from a lost world. But before we start our story, make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new stories. The Blackwood Manor was a time capsule, a grand, historic mansion that had been sealed up for 70 years. The last owner had died in the 1950s, and the house had been left to sleep. Dust sheets covered the furniture like ghosts. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and silence. Now, the estate was finally being reopened, restored, and the first step was to ensure the old house was safe. That's where Daniel came in. Daniel was a chimney sweep, but he wasn't the old-fashioned kind with a top hat and a brush. He was a modern specialist, a historical conservator. He used high-tech cameras and specialized tools to clean and inspect the delicate chimneys of historic properties. He loved jobs like this. It was like waking up a sleeping giant. Every room held a story, but he never imagined the biggest story of all was hiding in a chimney. He was working in the mansion's grand library. The fireplace was a masterpiece of carved stone. It was huge, cold. It hadn't seen a fire since before most people were born. Daniel began his work. He sent his powerful, rotating brush up the flue. It was a routine job. Then, about 30 feet up, his tools hit something. A metallic sound echoed down the flue. Daniel frowned. This was unusual. His first thought was a collapsed flue liner. He took out the next tool in his kit, a small, high-definition camera with a powerful light mounted on a long, flexible rod. He switched on the monitor. He began feeding the camera up into the blackness of the chimney. The screen showed a journey up a dark, narrow tunnel of brick and soot. Higher and higher he pushed, and then the camera revealed the source of the blockage. It was a small, soot-covered metal box. It was wedged tightly on a hidden, recessed ledge inside the chimney. Slowly, carefully, he began to lower his precious catch. It felt like a deep-sea salvage operation. Finally, the box emerged from the fireplace, covered in a thick blanket of black soot. It was an old tin document box. Its lid was rusted shut. It was surprisingly heavy. He took the box outside onto the mansion's overgrown lawn. He carefully pried the rusted lid open with a screwdriver. It creaked in protest, then popped open. Daniel peered inside, his curiosity at its peak, and his face fell. He felt a wave of disappointment. The box wasn't full of gold coins or old letters. It was filled with dusty, heavy sheets of glass. Each one was about 8 inches by 10 inches. It looked like a box of old, discarded window panes. Just old glass, he thought. All that work for nothing? He sighed. He picked up one of the glass sheets. It was thick and heavy in his hand. He was about to toss it aside, but the afternoon sun was shining brightly. On an impulse, he held the glass plate up, letting the light shine through it, and his heart stopped. As the light passed through the glass, an image appeared, a ghostly, incredibly detailed photograph. It was a portrait, the dignified, weathered face of a man with long, braided hair and piercing eyes stared back at him. The glass wasn't just glass, it was a photographic negative, a perfect, pristine negative from a world that had vanished long ago. Daniel stood frozen on the lawn, the glass plate held between his fingers. He felt like he was holding a ghost. He reached back into the box and lifted out another. He held it to the sundae. Another face stared back, this time a woman with a gentle smile, holding a small child in her arms. He pulled out another, and another. It wasn't just one photo. It was an entire community, a lost family album, hidden from the world in a column of soot and darkness. These aren't just pictures, he thought. These are people, an entire tribe. Why were they hidden? He knew this discovery was far too important for him to handle alone. He made a call, not to the news, not to an auction house. He called the State Historical Museum. The next day, he was sitting in a sterile conservation lab with Dr. Anya Sharma, the museum's head curator of photography. She gently placed one of the glass plates onto a light table. The image glowed with an incredible clarity. Dr. Sharma was silent for a long time. She looked at the image through a magnifying loupe, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. Dr. Sharma and her team began a deep dive into the history of the Blackwood Manor. They found the original owner's journal in the town archives. His name was Elias Blackwood. He was a wealthy industrialist, but the journal revealed his true, secret passion. He was a pioneering photographer, and he was more than that. In the 1880s, most photographers treated Native Americans as exotic subjects, outsiders, documenting a dying culture. But Elias Blackwood was different. His journal was filled with entries about his deep friendship with the local tribe, a tribe known as the Sun River People. He wrote of them with respect, affection, and a deep sadness for the world they were losing. The Sun River People's history had been almost completely erased. A fire at a nearby government outpost in the early 1900s had destroyed all official records and the few known photographs of them. An entire people had been reduced to a footnote in a history book. Until now, Elias Blackwood had not taken these photos as a scientist. He had taken them as a friend. They were not ethnographic studies. They were dignified, personal, human portraits. He had captured their spirits. His final journal entry explained everything. He wrote that he feared his collection would be confiscated or destroyed. He saw the prejudice against his friends. He wanted to protect their images, their legacy. In a desperate act of preservation, he had sealed his life's work in a metal box, and he had hidden it in the safest, most stable, and most secret place he could think of his library chimney. The team at the museum began the delicate process of creating positive prints from the glass negatives. Slowly, an image began to appear. The ghostly negative was transformed. They were bringing the ghosts back to life, and because Elias had meticulously labeled each plate in his journal, they could do something even more incredible. They could give them back their names. The discovery of the Blackwood collection was hailed as a monumental cultural treasure, one of the most important ethnographic finds of the century. The museum organized a major exhibition, The Sun River People, The Lost Portraits. And the most incredible thing happened. Using the names from the journal, the museum was able to track down living descendants of the Sun River People. They came to the museum. They walked through the exhibition hall in silence. They saw the faces of their great-great-grandparents for the first time. They saw their families' eyes, their families' smiles. It was a powerful, emotional moment of reconnection, a healing of a deep historical wound. Daniel often attended the exhibit. He would stand in the back of the room and watch the faces of the people looking at the portraits. His job was to clean away the darkness and the dust of the past. He was expecting to find a bird's nest. Instead, he found a lost tribe. He gave a people their faces back, and he returned a priceless piece of American history to the world.